Okay, Bismillah. So this is Makkah Mukarramah, the time of Nabi Ibrahim alayhi salam, around 4,000 years ago. So at that time, Mecca was an isolated valley and it was mountains. Look at it, no trees, no water. There wasn't anything in Mecca. So at that time, Prophet Ibrahim was told to take his wife Hajar and his son Ismail to Mecca. He erected that tent for his family and then he went back to Palestine. He left his family in the desert knowing that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would take care of them. So a few days later, Anha ran out of water. She was running between Safa and the Marwa. She was looking for a caravan or water. So after she had taken several rounds between these two mountains, Jibreel came down and struck his wing onto the ground. And subhanAllah, the water started gushing out from there. She was trying to stop. She was saying Zam Zam. That means stop, stop. And that's what we call Zam Zam. The first tribe to settle in Mecca is a Yemeni tribe called Jurhum. The people of Jurhum used to go to Syria on business. On the way back to Yemen, they used to rest behind the mountain of the Qubais, almost there. So they used to stop there for rest. One day they saw birds flying over the valley. They knew there was water in there. So they came down to the valley, found Hajar, Ismail, and the well of Zam Zam. They wanted to stay permanently in Mecca, so they asked Hajar permission. Hajar accepted that, but she had one condition. She just wanted to be responsible for the water. Prophet Ibrahim used to visit his family once in a while. During one of those visits, Allah commanded him to rebuild the Kaaba. The Kaaba was built by Prophet Adam originally. When Ibrahim came to Mecca, there wasn't anything. The floods had already destroyed it. That is why the Kaaba is not shown in the first map. You want to see that? Yeah. The Kaaba is not showing there because when everyone came to Mecca the first time, the Kaaba was completely destroyed. So around 300 years after Ismail's death, another tribe called Qusai conquered Mecca, and the leader of that tribe, Amr ibn Luhay, became the ruler. Amr ibn Luhay brought the idols to Mecca, so because of him the people became idol worshippers or pagans, and that's when paganism started in Mecca Mukarramah. The descendants of Ismail alayhi salam were banished from Mecca, so they moved to the surrounding valleys. Around 200 years before the Prophet was born, Qusai ibn Kilab gathered these people from the other valleys. They conquered Mecca, and Qusay became ruler. By the way, Qusay is the Prophet's great-great-grandfather. So the people of Quraysh, or the descendants of Ismail, took over again. Okay? And then we have Makkah Mukarramah at the time of Nabi Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. You see, 1400 years ago. See that wall around the Kaaba? That wall was like a boundary. No one was allowed to build anything within the wall. That building is called Dar al-Nadwa. It was like a parliament or a meeting house where the leaders used to have their meetings. That one. This is Abdullah's house where Nabi Muhammad was born and raised. Abu Bakr as-Siddiq's house. And this is Dar al-Arqam. Al-Arqam is a companion. His house was like a hideout or a secret school. Even the Sahabas used to meet there and study Islam secretly. Okay? This is the key of the Kaaba. It is the original one. The key of the Kaaba is changed every few years. So this is the one which was used in the 70s, around 40 years ago. Right behind here, we have
So is that the
this cloth? Is the actual cloth of the Kaaba. Yes. Not that one. Right behind here, we have this cloth. This cloth from the Kaaba as well. It is 230 years.
230.
35 actually. 230.
Yeah.
Here we have the stages of the Kaaba. So the Kaaba was built by Prophet Adam, peace be upon him. When Ibrahim came to Mecca, there wasn't anything. The floods had already destroyed it. It was completely destroyed. Prophet Ibrahim was told to rebuild, so he made it 15 meters by 10 meters, okay? He made it roofless, and he made 2 doors forward. Around 2,500 years later, this Kaaba here was damaged, so the Prophet's family wanted to rebuild it. They decided to use halal money, pure money. They didn't have enough, and that is why they made it smaller, 10 by 10. The actual size 15 by 10, not 10 by 10. So they put the semicircle next to it to make it 15 by 10 meters. The semicircle is called Hajar. Some people call it Hatim. So now when you do tawaf, you must do it from the outside, not in between. When you are in that area, it's like you are inside the Kaaba, and that is why that area is always crowded. Abdullah bin Zubayr rebuilt the Kaaba after the death of the Prophet. He was told that the Prophet had wanted to make the Kaaba on the foundations of Ibrahim. He wanted to fulfill the Prophet's wish, and that is why he returned it to the original size, 15 by 10 meters. A few years later, when al-Hajjaj, the ruler of Iraq, he came to Mecca and put back the Hijr. He thought that the Kaaba was changed, and that is why he put back the Hijr. And the Kaaba has been like this ever since. The Turks made it higher or taller, and then King Fahd renovated the Kaaba in 1997, around 20 years ago. Okay, sir. Any questions about that? Okay. The grandfather of the Prophet made about, he said, "Oh, if you give me 10 sons, I will sacrifice one of them in return." He had only one son when he made that promise. So when he had 10 sons, he wanted to thank Allah by slaughtering one of them. So he drew lots, like, they would write the names on arrows and they would randomly choose one of them. So the one who was chosen to be sacrificed was the Prophet's father, Abdullah. Abdullah was Abdul Muttallib's most beloved son. So sacrificing him was really hard. The people of Quraysh told him, "Go to Yathrib and seek some advice there." There was a wise woman, a fortune teller in Medina, so that lady told him to sacrifice camels instead. He slaughtered 900 camels and he gave it to the poor people in Mecca. When Abdullah was 25 years old, he got married, and Amina was pregnant. Abdullah was on a journey to ash-Sham, Syria. On the way back to Mecca, he stopped over in Medina. He was very sick in Medina, and that is why he couldn't make it to Mecca. So Abdullah, the Prophet's father, died here in Medina. Always. Always. You know him? That's her, yeah. See, that's Abraha, look at him.
Yes.
The governor of Yemen. Abraha built a church in Yemen, and he wanted all the Arabs to go to the church to worship Allah there. The Arabs did not follow his orders. Moreover, one of the Arabs went to the church and defiled it by defecating inside it. And that is why Abraha wanted to destroy their sacred house, the Kaaba. He had a huge army and one elephant. Sharia said that the elephant's name is Mahmud. Many people tried to stop Abraha's army on the way to Mecca. They couldn't because the army was extremely strong. When the army arrived in Mecca, the birds of Allah appeared from nowhere. In a dark cloud of small birds overshadowed the entire army. We call them ababil. Each bird had 3 stones. They threw them on the army. In just minutes, the whole army was destroyed, and that year is called the year of the elephant. Okay, so let's stop. Yeah, that finishes and carry on. Yeah, you see, he was born pure, clean, already circumcised. His mother said from the day he became pregnant with him till the day he gave birth to him, I never felt any pain. SubhanAllah, his grandfather Abdul Mutallib carried him to the Kaaba, where he thanked Allah for the baby and he named him Muhammad. When the Nabi was 6 years old, his mother took him to Medina Munawwara to see his maternal uncles. 1 month later, his mother died on the way back to Mecca. She died in al-Abwa, that was in between Mecca and Medina, around 180 kilometers. So by the time he was 6, he had lost his parents. See the red sofa here? This one here belongs, yeah. This one here was like it was for Abdul Mutallib. It was like a throne. No one was allowed to sit on that sofa but Abdul Mutallib. Abdul Mutallib used to let the Nabi sit on it, and he used to say to the people, "This is my son Muhammad, and he will be important in the future." Abdul Mutallib had been told that his grandson would be a great leader, and that is why he used to treat him that way. When the Nabi was 8 years old, his grandfather died. Okay, so he became an orphan for the 3rd time. His uncle Abu Talib became his guardian. Abu Talib wanted to take him to ash-Sham to teach him business. He wanted him to be a businessman. So on the way to ash-Sham, a priest recognized the mark on the back of the Prophet. We call it the seal of the Prophet. The priest saw that mark. He knew that would be a prophet, so he told Abu Talib to take his nephew back to Mecca to keep him from the Jews. A lot of them were in ash-Sham, and that's what the priest was afraid of. He was afraid that the Jews might kill him harming or do bad things to Rasulullah. He was only 12 years old. So 5 years later, and Nabi received, he was 12 years, yeah. When he was 25 years old, the people, they would call him an Amin, the trustworthy. At that time, Khadijah was the richest woman in Mecca. She used to hire men to trade on her behalf in Syria. So she hired him not because he was so good at it, no. She hired him because he was the trustworthy. She promised him that she would give him half the profits. So on the way to ash-Sham, a priest saw Nabi sitting under a dad's tree. The priest asked Maysara. Maysara was Khadija's servant, was the father. Maysara said, that's Muhammad bin Abdullah. Maysara said, the priest said to Maysara, no one sits under that tree but Allah's messenger.
That's in Jordan right now, isn't it?
They say that. And when it was hot, Maysara would see two angels with the Prophet, like they were shading him, protecting him from the sun. So Maysara told Khadija about the angels and the priest. He also told her about the Prophet's character. She was amazed by that. She wanted to marry the Prophet, so she's the one who proposed. The Prophet accepted that even though she was 15 years older. They had 6 children, 2 sons and 4 daughters, but the sons couldn't survive. They were very young when they died. Right behind the year, when the Nabi was 35 years old, the people of Quraysh wanted to rebuild the Kaaba. Look at that. All the families participated. Everything went on in harmony. But when it came to place al-Hajar Aswad, every family wanted to do that. So the people were fighting over it actually. The oldest amongst them came and said to the people, this is not the way we should do it. Let's wait here, and the first one who enters into the sanctuary, let him decide. It was the Nabi Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. The people were very glad it was him because they knew that the Prophet was wise and just. They knew that Nabi was going to make everyone happy. That is why they were very glad it was him. So Nabi asked for that cloth. He spread it out. He placed al-Hajj in the center. Then he said, I need one representative for each family. And then he asked the representatives of the families to carry to the corner together. And Nabi took al-Hajj with the cloth himself, and he put it in its place. This way all the families participated in placing it, and that shows how wise he was, the wisdom he had. So 5 years later, he received the first Hajj. Was it where?
Yes.
Yep.
Ikram.
So this is Jabal al-Nur. Up there we have Wadi Hira, where the Prophet is to contemplate. He would spend days, sometimes weeks. So when he was 40, he received the first ayah, Iqra bismi rabbika alladhi khalaq. In the beginning of the Dawah, the Prophet was told to preach privately or secretly. This is the house where they would meet, Dar al-Arqam. It wasn't between Safa and the Marwa, but it was closer to Safa. So after 3 years of preaching privately, the Prophet was told to announce it publicly, to go out and spread Islam. The people of Quraysh couldn't take it because the number of the Muslims was rising. They wanted to stop him, so they killed some of his companions. They hurt some of them, and they couldn't protect the Sahabas because Allah had not given him permission to fight back at that time, and that is why He told them to migrate to Abyssinia, Ethiopia. Thank you, sir. So the Sahabas were told to go there because the ruler was wise and he was just and kind-hearted. Around 100 companions migrated to Abyssinia, including Uthman ibn Affan and his wife, the Prophet's daughter, Muslim and many Sahabas. The people of Quraysh sent their envoys with a lot of gifts to the king. They wanted him to send the Sahabas back to Makkah Mukarramah. The king was just, and that is why he refused to send them back to Makkah Mukarramah. And by the way, the king ended up becoming a Muslim. SubhanAllah. Some of the Sahabas stayed there for 1 year, like Uthman ibn Affan. And his wife, the Prophet's daughter, Salam and Abu Salama. And some people who stayed there for over 10 years, like Jafar ibn Talib, Habiba. When the Nabi was 47 years old, the people of Quraysh decided to kill him. They couldn't take it anymore. Subhanallah, Banu Hashim, that's the Prophet's family, they stood up by him. They supported him, even though many of them were not Muslims. It's not about religion now, it's about family. So the other families in Makkah Mukarramah boycotted the Prophet's family. They decided not to sell food to the family of Nabi, not to buy food from from this family. It was very hard to be in his family, and that's why they had to leave the city. They went to the valleys where food and water were very limited. The boycott was written on it. You look at it there. They wanted to make it more binding upon themselves, so they put it inside the camp. They hung it on the wall of the camp. 3 years later, look at that. The boycott got eaten by worms.
Yes.
Nothing left but the name of Allah, Bismika Allahum, and that's when the boycott ended. You know, in that year, Khadijah and Abu Talib died. They were his strongest supporters, and that is what we call it the year of sorrow or the year of silence. Abu Talib, you know, after the death of Abu Talib, and Nabi went to Taif. Taif is around 100 kilometers from Mecca. And Nabi thought that the people of Taif would accept Islam, but unfortunately they made fun of him, they insulted him, they even threw rocks at him. So he decided to go back to Mecca Mukarramah. On the way back to Mecca, he passed by a farm. The owners of that farm saw him bleeding under that tree. They wanted to help him, so they told their slave Addas to take some grapes to the Prophet. And Nabi said Bismillah before eating that. Addas was Christian, so he said to the Prophet that he had never heard something like that. Nabi asked Addas, where are you from? Addas said, I am from Naina, somewhere in Iraq. So Nabi said to Addas, Naina is the land of Prophet Yunus, Jonah, peace be upon him. Addas, like he was shocked, like how do you know about our land or prophet? And Nabi presented himself to Addas, said to Addas, Yunus is my brother because he was a prophet, and I'm a prophet too. And that made him a Muslim.
Yes.
And when he was, see, this one here shows Isra and Mi'raj. So Isra is the first part or the first leg. It's the journey of the Prophet from Mecca to Palestine. You know, Buraq. Buraq is like a winged horse. It carried the Nabi all the way to Palestine, where he led all the prophets of Allah, and then he ascended to the heavens. And Nabi came back and told all the people in Mecca about it. He thought that the people of Mecca would accept Islam, but they made fun of him. They said like, it takes us 1 month to go there. Now you're saying it just took you one night. Like they couldn't believe that Abu Bakr, and that is why we call him as-Siddiq, you know, the truthful one. He is the first one to believe in Isra and
Is that the dome with the rock?
yeah, Mr. Dumbo. Inshallah, we're going to talk about
Okay,
this.
cool.
See, when the Nabi was 52 years old, he met the people of Medina Munawwara in Al-Aqaba. Those people were performing Hajj. And Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam told them about Allah and His revelations. They immediately recognized him as the messenger who was mentioned in the Jewish scriptures.
Okay.
You know, the Jews had been living in Medina Munawwara for over 1,500 years. So the people, they knew it was him. The people who were in Mecca, they were not Jews, by the way, they were idol worshippers. Obviously, they had heard from the Jews, so they accepted Islam, and then they said to the Prophet, we are new, we don't know that much about Islam, so we need one of your companions to preach us, to teach us proper Islam. And Nabi chose Muhammad, and that is what we call him the first ambassador in Islam. And then the people of the Munawwara promised him, they said, inshallah, next year we'll come back with more people. The following year, 72 people came to Mecca with Mus'ab. All of them were Muslims, and all of them gave an oath of allegiance to the Prophet.
Is that where Masjid al-Bay'a is?
Yes, al-Bay'a.
Yeah, near Jamrat, isn't it?
That's true.
Yeah,
it's a mosque now. It's a masjid.
Yeah.
Subhanallah, the people of the Munawwar were the first people to stand up by his message, and that is why the Prophet calls them al-Ansar, helpers or supporters. So after that, the Sahabas of the Nabi were told to migrate to Medina Munawwara. You see, they were divided into small groups, and they were told to take different routes. Any idea why? So it would be hard for the leaders to track them down. And by the way, it took them around 6 days, 6 to 7 days to arrive in Medina. And Nabi didn't join the Sahabas because Allah had not told him to go to Medina. He was in Makkah al-Mukarramah awaiting Allah's permission. So when he was told to go there, the people of Quraysh knew about it. They knew that Nabi had decided to migrate to Medina Munawwara, and that is why they wanted to kill him. So look at that. See, 40 assassins were told to kill him. They didn't want to break in because the Prophet's daughters are in the house. And Nabi went past them. They couldn't see him leaving the house. It's like Allah blocked his messenger from their side. And Nabi was reciting وَجَعَلْنَا بَيْنَ أَيْدِيهِمْ سَدًّا. We have made a barrier before them and a barrier behind them so they can't see. They couldn't see him leaving the house. See, that's the Prophet's house. He took all the way to Abu Bakr's house, and both of them decided they headed south. They decided to go to the cave of Thor. Thor is in the south, but Medina is in the north. And Nabi Abu Bakr knew that the search would be in the north, and that's why they decided to hide in the south. The best tracker is Suraqa. You know, the disbelievers, of course, didn't find him in his house. They found Ali radiallahu anhu sleeping in the Prophet's bed. They didn't kill him because he was very young. The disbelievers couldn't find the Nabi anywhere in Mecca, and that is why they set a price of 100 camels on the head of the Prophet. Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Many trackers were after him. The best tracker at that time, Suraqa, followed him to the cave. You know, 100 camels, that's a lot of money. Not just any camels, like red camel, the best camel.
Yes.
Camel, subhanAllah. So Suraqa followed him to the cave, but he was surprised once he got there. You know, the spider web was over the entrance, and the pigeon and the nest, like they were right in front of the entrance. When Suraqa saw that web, he couldn't believe that someone was hiding inside. At that time, they used to know things. For example, a web is there and it's now broken, so obviously no one is inside.
Yes.
I don't have to go in there and look for anything. And that's when Suraqa went back to Makkah. For Nabi Abu Bakr, they stayed in the cave for a few days. Asma Abu Bakr's daughter was the one who provided food and water for them. So the story of the cave is true, but the story of the spider web and the pigeons is debatable. They have different opinions about it. And here we have Masjid Aqsa. So the whole thing is called the Masjid Aqsa or the Haram Aqsa. Within the wall, you've been there, right?
I've not been there, no.
Okay. Within the wall, we have around 5 masjids.
Uh-huh.
These two are the most famous ones. Masjid Dome is the only mosque that you see on TV.
Yes.
It's not allowed to, it's Dome of the Rock. That's
the
where
Rock.
the Prophet ascended to Allah from there, okay?
Yes.
And that's why it's called Masjid Dome of the Rock. That one is the Masjid Aqsa. Most of the people call it that way. And it's also called Qibli. Qibli comes
Qibli.
from Qibla, yeah. Comes from Qibla. It's the first Qibla in Islam. So this is Masjid Qibli.
Yes.
And that's the Masjid Qibli where the Prophet led all the Prophet to Salah Salah, where he led the prayer.
Yes.
And then where he ascended to Allah from. So the point is that the Dome of the Rock is the only masjid that we see on TV. That is also the Muslims and
Yes.
that actually stand.
That's really
The
good.
whole thing is called the Hamas. It doesn't matter whether you pray inside or outside, you know, these two masjids. You know, they give you the same idea.
Right.
The same way you want. And you see this wall here? This one.
Yep.
This wall.
Oh, yes.
This is the waiting wall, where the Jews
the
pray,
Jews.
where they wail.
Yeah.
Muslims call it al-Buraq wall. Al-Buraq was tied to that wall, and that's why we call it al-Buraq wall. Yes. Okay. And here we have al-Qaswa. Qaswa
Prophet's
is,
camels.
that's true. That's true. It's a female, or a female camel or a she camel. Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam bought it from Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu for 400 dirhams. She was only 4 years old when he bought it. So she stayed with him for 11 years. When the Nabi died, this camel became very, very sad. Like she was crying all the time. She couldn't comprehend it. And that is why she got blind. You see, she became blind. That's true. Not only that, she stopped eating and drinking. And that is why she died around 20 to 28 days after the Prophet's death. She couldn't live longer. She was only 15 years old when she died. Camels usually for 30 to 35 years, so she was really young. So this camel here carried the Nabi all the way to Medina during Hijrah. She participated in many battles, such as Badr and the Conquest of Makkah. In addition, the Nabi performed Hajj. He was 60 to 63 years old, so he performed Hajj on that camel, sallallahu alayhi wasallam.
What are these? Are these graves?
Yeah, that's Baqi, where
Oh,
he
okay.
used to stay.
Right, okay. Yeah.
Right next to Baqi. And here we have Yathrib. Yathrib is the old name,
From Medina.
yeah, from Medina. Yathrib actually was one of the grandsons of Prophet Nuh, alayhi salam. He came to Medina over 6,000 years ago, and the city was named after him. So Yathrib has a bad meaning in Arabic to blame someone, and that is going to be changed the name of the city to Medina Munawwara. The first tribe to settle in Medina Munawwara, the tribe of Al-Amaliq, the city Amalekites.
Yes.
They used to live in the north side of the city.
SubhanAllah.
And then we have the Jews. The Jews came to Medina with the time of Nabi Moses alayhi salam, around 3,000 years ago. These tribes are Bani Nadir, Bani Qaynuqa, and Bani Qurayza. They just had agreements, pacts with the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam. They didn't accept Islam because the Nabi was not one of them.
So from left to right, it is?
Bani Nadir, Bani Qaynuqa, and Bani
Yeah.
Qurayza.
Okay.
So after breaking all these agreements, some of these people were banished, some of them were killed. All a few people accepted Islam. Okay, and then we have here the Prophet's journey to Medina. Like, you know, this is Hijrah. You know, along the way to Medina Munawwara, there are many, many stories. Some of these stories are authentic, and some of them are not. The most famous ones are these two: the Surah from Mu'abad and the Surah from Al-Madinah. Ma'bad was a very, very generous lady. And Nabi Bakr Siddiq came to her tent asking for something. She didn't have anything. The Nabi saw that goat in the corner. He asked Ma'bad about it. She said to him, "This goat is very old and there is no milk in it." He said, "Can I milk it?" She said to him, "It's almost dying." So he asked me again, "Can I milk it?" She said, "It's very old, there's no milk in it." So he asked her the third time. Yeah. And then she said, "You can do that." Wow. And Nabi said, "Oh Allah, bless the goat of Muhammad." He said, "Bismillah." And then he started touching the goat, like he wiped over the udder, and it filled with milk. Yes. So all of them had milk, and Nabi, Ma'bad, and everyone who was with them. And Nabi Abu Bakr Siddiq gave Ma'bad a bowl of milk before leaving the tent. Yes. So when her husband came back, he saw that milk. He said, like, "Where did you get it from?" Because there wasn't anything when I left. She said, "A blessed man, by Allah, a blessed man was here." So he said, "Describe him to me." Yes. She described Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. This description of Muhammad is still there. Yes. On YouTube, on Google, in the books of Sirah. It's the best one. Okay? And the second story here is the story of Suraqah bin Malik. Suraqah was the best striker at that time. He didn't have any personal issues with the Prophet nor Abu Bakr. He was after the bounty. He just wanted the bounty. He saw them in the valley of Jurhum. He wanted to capture them.
الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله.
He says, "I found them in Ibn Bakr and I could see them." So I was getting closer. I got close where I could hear Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam reciting the Quran. Wow. Abu Bakr was just looking around, constantly checking, trying to protect the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Suraqah says, "I drew my spear, I aimed it at the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. When I was thinking about throwing it, all of a sudden the front legs of my horse sunk into the ground. I backed up my horse, I tried to do it, and again it happened. I tried to do it for the third time, and again it happened. And that's when I knew that Muhammad was a true messenger. So I screamed out towards the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, 'Muhammad, please save me, please stop, Muhammad, save me.' And Ibn Bakr Siddiq stopped. Suraqah came to the Prophet ﷺ and he told him everything. He told him that the people of Quraysh had put a price on his head. Now Suraqah knew that the Nabi was a true messenger. He knew that the Nabi was divinely protected. He knew that the Nabi was on a mission and nobody could stop him no matter what. So Nabi Sallallahu said to Suraqah, "You just keep our information private. Don't tell anyone about us." And then Suraqah said to the Prophet, "I want you to write down something for me, something like a note saying that I have your protection." Suraqah knew that the Nabi was going to conquer Makkah one day, and that is why he wanted that protection. Subhanallah. And Nabi also promised them, "Oh Suraqah, you will be given the crown and the bracelets of Kisra." Suraqah asked the Nabi, "Are you talking about the king of Persia?" And Nabi said, "Yes, I'm talking about the king of Persia. You're going to have his bracelets and his crown as well." Subhanallah. For Suraqah, that's something hard to believe in. Yes. 8 years later, after the Sahabas had conquered Mecca, Suraqah was captured and he was brought to the Prophet ﷺ. And then Suraqah showed the Nabi that little patch. He said to the Prophet, "Don't you remember that I have your protection?" And Nabi said, "Hada yawm wafa'in wa bir." Today is the day of fulfilling promises. And then Nabi said to Suraqah, "Come close." Suraqah came close to the Prophet ﷺ and he converted to Islam. Around 8 years after his Islam, Suraqah was given the crown and the bracelets by Umar ibn Khattab himself. Wow. Suraqah is a companion. Yes. So let me show you the route here. Wow. So this one here was the main route at that time. The one that the people used to take to al-Madinah. They used to call it the trade route or the caravan route. And Ibn Abu Bakr didn't take it because of the bounty. They took another route along the coast. We call it al-Hijrah. So on the left here we have al-Hijrah, and on the right we have the route of business. They look similar, but believe me, they are completely different in reality. It took Ibn Abu Bakr around 12 days to arrive in al-Madinah. Okay? The second thing we have here are these volcanoes. Look at these volcanoes. Wow. They are 16 kilometers away from Medina Munawwara, up 600 kilometers all the way to the east. These volcanoes used to erupt before the birth of the Prophet. That is why we have these volcanic tracks around the city. I'm going to show you that. These volcanoes are still there, but they are inactive. The last eruption took place 800 years ago. So let me show you that. So Medina Munawwara was bounded by volcanic tracts from the west, the east, and the south. These volcanic tracts were very sharp. It was impossible for the people to enter the city through the land. due to the sharpness of these rocks. That side, or the north side of the city, that was open, no volcanic tracks, nothing was there. Was no volcanic tracks, nothing was there, and that is why that side was the main entrance. So the people who would come from Mecca from the south, they would go around. They would take this valley from the south all the way to the north, and then they would enter the city. Okay, and the Bakrs didn't take it because they were afraid that someone might be waiting for them there. They actually entered the city from the south. They had to take a very tight valley in the south called the Rana. And Nabi was very grateful, so the first thing he wanted to do was salah. He stopped right there. He offered to rakat, thanking Allah for arriving in the Medina with no harm. And then he carried them to Thaniyat Wada, where the people welcomed him. Like when the people knew that Nabi had started this journey to Medina Munawwara, they decided to wait for him every day. They would wait every day until midday. So when they saw him there, they started singing Tala al-Badru alayna min thaniyat wada. After that, Nabi Muhammad took all the way to the houses of Bani Sa'uf, where he stayed for a few days. Within those days, he built the first masjid in Islam, Masjid Quba. So these two masjids were not there. They had not been built yet. Quba is the first one in Islam. On Friday in the early morning, Nabi Muhammad took all the way to the houses of Bani Salim, where he was commanded by Allah to offer the first Jummah, the first Friday of prayer. Subhanallah.
That's a Masjid Jum'ah.
Mr. Jummah, thank you, sir. The Sahabas were there asking the Prophet ﷺ, "Oh Ya Rasulullah, come to my house. Oh Ya Rasulullah, to my house." Everyone wanted to have him in his house. So Nabi said to the people, "Where my camel sits, there will be my house." So the Sahabas were following the Prophet's camel, trying to stop it. The camel took all the way to the center. She sat right there where the Prophet said, "Here's my house and here's my mosque." That's the Masjid al-Sharif, and it's the second Masjid in Islam. The first is Quba, and the second is the Masjid al-Nabi al-Sharif. See that mountain right there? That Uhud. And this is the train station of Al-Hijaz. Sorry, this is Uhud, and this is Al-Aqiq. Al-Aqiq is a valley. So Uhud and Al-Aqiq are going to be taken to paradise. They're going to be in Jannah. Nabi said that about these two, Nabi also said, Al-Madinah Munawwara is between Eid and Thawr. Eid and Thawr are mountains. This is Eid. Thawr is a small mountain behind Uhud. It's behind Uhud now. So, Al-Madinah Munawwara now is a very big city. But this part between Eid and Thawr, this part here, is called Al-Haram. It's called Al-Haram. So this part of the city will be protected when the Dajjal comes. There will be angels securing Medina Munawwara, preventing the Dajjal from entering the city. So Medina will be secured as well as Mecca and Mukarramah. Okay, so any questions about that? So I think we should stop to pray.
Yeah.
There were two opinions. Some of the Sahabas wanted to fight within the city. And that was the opinion of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The majority of the Sahabas, most of the Sahabas wanted to fight outside the city, outside of the city, and that is why Prophet decided to go on. 300 hypocrites decided not to fight outside, and that is why even the Sahabas were left with only 700. Their camp, was in between Uhud and this small mountain. And Nabi saw that mountain in the battlefield. He was afraid of a potential of attack from the rear. He knew that the Sahabas would attack the Muslims from the back. And that is why he placed 50 archers on that mountain.
That's Mount Ruma.
Ruma. They gave them very clear instructions. He said, just stay there, do not come down whether we are winning or losing. Allah said to us, very simple. Don't leave your positions unless said to us. And that camp right there is for the disbelievers. They were 3,000, and their leader was Abu Sufyan. The disbelievers actually came here to take revenge. They had been defeated at Badr. A lot of them had been killed there. They wanted to take revenge. They wanted to kill the Prophet. Subhanallah, the initial attack of the Muslims was devastating. It was powerful. The disbelievers could not sustain it even though they were way outnumbered. So the Muslims were winning and the disbelievers were fleeing. When the archers here saw that, they thought it was over. The enemy is fleeing, so obviously it's done. So the archers disobeyed the Prophet's order. They came down to collect the spoils that were in the booty. Khalid bin Walid saw them coming down. He detected a weak point. He wanted to take advantage of that. So Khalid the horsemen out to flag the Muslims army. You see, the other way around. See, they killed the remaining archers. He came down, and then they attacked the Muslims from the back. The rest of the disbelievers came back and joined Khalid. It was a chaotic state. because Muslims were being attacked from both sides, the front and the rear. They were falling one after another, and that's when the Prophet told the Sahabas to retreat to Uhud. Only 12 companions stayed with the Prophet. They were there trying to protect him, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. All of them were killed, but Talha carried the Nabi to that crack where Fatima took care of the Prophet, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Abu Sufyan, the leader of the disbelievers, thought that the Muslims were trying to go around the mountain and attack his army from behind. He thought it would be a trap, and that's why he told his army to retreat back. Historians say there's no winner nor loser because both sides retreated. But when we talk about losses, and even the Sahabas lost 70 out of 700, that's 10%. The disbelievers lost only 22 out of 3,000. That's almost nothing. Because of the archers, many Sahabas were killed. Because of them, the Nabi was injured, but Allah forgave them all. That's mentioned in the Quran. The following day, and then the Sahabas went after the disbelievers. They followed them to Hamra al-Asad, but the disbelievers had already left. And then the Sahabas stayed in Hamra al-Asad for a few days, expecting that the disbelievers would come back to fight again. The disbelievers didn't come back, and that is why few historians say that Muslims won the battle.
Okay.
They went after the disbelievers, and the disbelievers did not come back to fight again. So this is Uhud. I tried to make it as brief as I could.
Yeah.
If you have any questions, you can ask.
Who's buried there?
The Sahabas,
Yes.
around 70 Sahabas, like Hamza, Hamdallah, Abdullah bin Jahsh, Mus'ab bin Umayr, around 70.
Yes.
Okay? And then let's talk about the trench. See, the disbelievers collaborated with the Jews to kill the Prophet and the Sahabas. They were 10,000. And then the Sahabas were only 3,000. That's why this battle is also called the Ahzab. Ahzab confederates or tribes. They just collaborated to kill the Prophet and the Sahabas. Nabi Sallallahu had a shura session with the Sahabas. Salman al-Farisi said to the Prophet, in our land Persia, if we fear the enemy, we would dig a trench. So why won't we dig a trench, Ya Rasulullah? And even the Sahabas liked the idea. You know why? Because the Medina Munawwara had a natural protection. Look at that. See these volcanic tracks?
Yes.
See here in the west? See here? The west, the east, and the south. These volcanic tracks were very sharp. And even the Sahabas knew that the disbelievers and the Jews would not have the ability of entering Medina through the land.
Yeah.
So they had only that side that was open, and it was the only way for the disbelievers. And that is when the Sahabas built the trench in the north side of the city, from the west to the east. See this wall, this mountain?
Yes.
Is that one. See, this is the trench.
Yes.
I'll show you that just 1 second. See, that's the trench. From the west lava to the east lava. See, the trench was 2.5 kilometers long,
Yes.
4.5 meters wide, and 3.5 meters deep. Now, with all the equipment, the machines we have, it takes weeks. But in the Sahabas finished it within 6 days. Seems impossible, but it's Allah's will. The Jews and the disbelievers were shocked by the trench. They couldn't believe what they had, so they couldn't cross over. Horses couldn't jump over either because it was extremely big. So the Muslims were on this side here, and the disbelievers were on that side. The trench was in between, and that is why there wasn't any fight. They were just throwing rocks and arrows at each other. A group of the disbelievers could enter the city, but they got killed by the Sahabas of the Prophet. The trench was there, everything was perfect, but this battle was the hardest and the toughest for the Sahabas because it lasted for 29 days. 29 days, the food and the water were very limited. Out of hunger, Nabi would tie a stone to his stomach. Nabi made dua. Eventually, Allah answered his dua by sending a sandstorm to the disbelievers, which made them retreat back to Makkah Mukarramah. Now, this area is called the seven masjids. The Prophet's army was divided into 7 battalions. Each one of them had a masjid, and that's why we call it the 7 masjids. And here we have the map. We have the trench. Can you see that? See how big it is? Look at it. See the big rock right there? That rock was very big. So much so that the Sahabas couldn't break it. SubhanAllah, Nabi took a big axe and started hitting that rock. He just hit it 3 times. Faris. He just hit it 3 times. But every time he hits it, a light comes out and a third breaks. When the first third brought, he said, I have been given the keys of Syria. I can see the palaces of Syria from here, from where I am. When the second third broke, he said, I have been given the keys of Persia. I can see the gates of Persia from here. When the third broke, he said, I have been given the keys of Yemen. You know why Nabi was saying that to the Sahabas? Because some of them were frustrated. Like we have been digging for a few days now, right? A lot of people are heading towards Medina. When these people arrive in Medina, we will not be strong enough to fight back because of the digging. We're going to be tired, exhausted. Probably we're going to lose the battle. We might get killed. So Nabi Sallallahu was, motivating them. He was encouraging them. He was saying, don't worry about this one here. This is nothing. Because in the future, we will conquer Persia, Syria, and Yemen. That gave them the strength they needed to finish the trench. They knew that they were going to win this battle. So that's why subhanAllah, they were kind of confident, SubhanAllah. That's why you hear. See, that's the Prophet's camel.
Oh wow.
Yeah, this is the Medina Munawwara at the time of Nabi Muhammad. So when he arrived, like the houses of Bani Salim, he said to the people, "Where my camel sits, there will be my house." So the Sahabas were following the Prophet's camel, trying to stop it. The camel took all the way to the center. She sat right there where the Prophet said, "Here's my house and here is my mosque." This land here was for two brothers, Sal and Suhaib. They wanted to give it to the Prophet as a present, and Nabi used to accept gifts. But he didn't accept that one because they were orphaned and they were very young. And then the Sahaba started building a Masjid al-Sharif. It took them around 6 months to finish building it. Inshallah, we're going to talk about it. That's Abu Ayyub al-Ansari's house where the Prophet stayed before his houses were built. And these are the houses of the wife of the companions of Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Now, Masjid al-Sharif covers the whole city.
Yes.
So we don't just pray in the Masjid of Nabi, we also pray in the houses of the Sahabas. So when you pray there, you will be rewarded, and so will the Sahabas because we pray in their houses. And also we have Baqi. Look at Baqi. Baqi was outside of Medina. You know Baqi, right? The cemetery.
Yeah, I went to visit it.
Yeah, it was outside the city and it was divided into two graveyards. The big one here is called the Baqiyah. Around 10,000 companions are buried there. And Nabi had 11 wives. 9 of them are buried in Baqiyah, including Aisha radiallahu anha. The small one next to it, where the Prophet's aunties are buried. And Nabi had 6 aunties. 3 of them were Muslims, Atika, Safiya, and Arwa. They are buried in that area, and that is why the people used to call it that way. Now these two graveyards are combined, and the Baqiyah is 5 times bigger. 90% of our people are buried in Baqiyah. That is why we always have janazah in the haram. Did you notice that? We almost have janazah after every salah in the haram, because whoever dies in Medina goes to Baqiyah. By the way, being buried in the Medina Munawwara is a blessing. And Nabi says, whosoever is able to die in Medina Munawwara, so let him die there, for indeed I will intercede for those who die in Medina. And he says about the people of Al-Baqiyah, when the judgment day comes, these people of Al-Baqiyah will be shining like full moon, and they will enter paradise without reckoning. So being buried there is a blessing. May Allah make us one of those. On here, we have a Masjid al-Nabawi Sharif. At first the Sahabas made it 35 meters by 30 meters. It had 2 sections or 2 roofs. This one here was for Salah, it was in the north, because the Qibla was to the Holy Mosque. So the people used to pray towards Muslims. And the small one here was for the poor. Most of the immigrants, they didn't have houses. They didn't have houses, so that part was made for them as a shelter. In the second of the Hijrah, and Nabi flipped the roofs. You know why? Because Allah had told him to change the direction to Makkah. Because in the south, Palestine is in the north, so he had to switch it to 180 degrees. He did not rebuild the masjid, he just flipped the roofs. Look at that one. Therefore, Salah became in the south, therefore the poor became in the north, right? And these are the houses of the wives of the Prophet. So we're going to talk about that. This one here is the first expansion, and it is the only expansion or the only extension in the lifetime of the Prophet. The Sahabas made it 50 by 50 meters. The first Khalifa.
7 Hijri, isn't it? After 7 Hijri.
Yeah, that's true. In the 70s, after the conquest, after the battle of Khaybar. That's true. Abu Bakr as-Siddiq, the first Khalifa, he did not expand the masjid. He just made it stronger by building pillars and columns inside. Second Khalifa, Umar radiallahu anhu, Sayyidina Umar expanded the mosque from the east and the south, and he removed that roof. You see, don't for the poor, he removed it. He took it away because there were no poor people at all. It was not needed. And then the third Khalifa, Uthman, Uthman was one of the richest, so he rebuilt the masjid. He made it of lava bricks and wood. The previous ones were made of mud bricks and palm leaves. Okay, this is for Walid al Malik. Walid al Malik made it 70 by 60 meters. This one here is a very special expansion for two reasons. See the red box? That one here, right there, that's the Aisha Radhiyallahu. So this is the first expansion that included the houses, and he built 4 minarets as well. Khalif al-Mahdi here expanded the mosque from the north side. He added these 2 minarets, and he made a well. See that well? He made it for wudu, to do wudu. Okay. The rest of the domes were made by Mamluks. They made these domes on purpose. No speakers, no mics. So the domes were like echo system, acoustics. And they built a bigger dome to signify the holy chamber. It was silver, but they used to call it the blue dome. Never been blue. But they
It's
used to
never
call
been
it no. The Turks wanted to change the color of the silver dome, and that is why they made it green in 1839, like 180 years ago. You can
Why
see
do you
that?
think they call it the blue dome?
They made it green in 1830.
Yeah.
See the black pot? What was
Why do you
it?
think they call it the blue dome?
I'm not sure. Maybe the reflection, maybe. Who knows better? The sun?
Yeah.
Maybe. See the black pole?
Yeah.
The black pole was like a sundial or a sun clock. The people used to use it all the time.
Yes.
All the time, Asr time.
Yes.
Sunset, sunrise, everything. This one here is for King Saud, 1955. So King Saud expanded the mosque from the north side. The mosque became 6,300 square meters. The biggest and the latest one
Yes.
that we have now. This one. This is the expansion of King Fahd. Started in 84 and it ended in 94. So from 84 to 94, that's 10 years. The size of the masjid is 350,000 square meters. The capacity is 1 million.
Wow. 1 million.
Okay? Sweet. See, small pot is called muddin herb, and the big pot is called sa. These two actually are measurements. People used to use these two to measure things like grains, you see, barley, wheat. Maybe Sallam used to use this one here to do wudu, to make wudu around 750, 740 milliliters, something like that. So he used to use it. He used to use this amount of water to do wudu, and he used to use one side of water for ghusl. So the big one is around 3 liters, the small one is around 750. You see, he used to use this amount of water for taking a shower.
Yes.
See how much water we waste. And this one here is Aisha's house. Aisha Radhiyallahu anha had a room and a courtyard.
Yes.
The graves of Nabi Abu Bakr and Umar are in the courtyard, not in the room. And Nabi said, the prophets of Allah are buried where they died. The Sahabas buried him in the courtyard because he died there. This is Hafsa's house, and the other one is for Fatima, the prophet's daughter. So Hafsa's house, Aisha's, and Fatma's are now underneath the green dome. 88 years after Hijrah, the roof of Aisha came down. Some of the Abdul Aziz rebuilt Aisha's house. Some says rebuilt. Umar ibn Abdul Aziz, he combined the room. See, he combined the room with the courtyard, so it became one room or one chamber. And then he removed Hafsa's house and Fatma's. He demolished these two.
Right, okay.
And then he made a
Yeah.
sided wall around the holy chamber. He didn't make it a four-sided wall like the Kaaba because he was afraid that the people might have the concept to walk around. The five-sided wall doesn't have any doors nor windows, and that means all the pictures on the internet are fake. The graves are sealed up. No one gets in there, not even for maintenance, not even for cleaning. Okay, and then like 800 years ago, Abdullah Bieber made another wall around the five-sided wall. He made it to protect the five-sided wall. 10 years later, Muhammad raised the outer wall to match the five-sided wall, and he made a small dome on top. Now, ladies do ziyarah from here, and men will do ziyarah from there. You see, this is Bab al-Salam. So we walk past them this way. These are the golden gates they grew up. So when we look through, we'll see the five-sided wall, not the graves. The five-sided wall or the Pentagon is covered by a green cloth,
Yes.
a green curtain. So that's why when people look at it, they think it's the Prophet's grave because it's green, but actually
Yeah.
it's not.
Right.
See, in 1481, a lightning struck the Prophet's masjid. See the small dome? It got burned down. So, like a group of people were chosen to go in there to clean up the holy chamber. Those people were the last people to see the graves. Some people say only one man was allowed to sit there, Muhammad Samhudi, and he was the last. No one has been there since 1481. It's been 538 years ago. Abdullah Bieber's, or I just like to rebuild everything. See, he made the second wall of metal caging instead of food. He rebuilt the small dome. He made it to flame so it won't be burnt again. This dome is still there, but we can't see it. Any idea why? The green dome now covers
Yeah, the green dome
everything.
covers it.
So the green, Al-Ashraf built remember the blue dome? It was silver, so he made it on top of that.
Right, okay.
See, that's it. Then the Turks made it green in 1839. Now you can look through these windows and you will see the five sides. See, you can look through.
Yeah.
See, that's what we see. See, you can see the wall, right?
Okay.
So that's what we see when we look through. Okay.
Yeah. So what was, what is that?
This black thing.
Yeah.
This is a window for the air to go in and out.
Okay, yes.
Yes. Okay. That one. You see, this is the conquered Makkah Mukarram. See, in the Sahaba, conquered Makkah Mukarram in Ramadan. They were 10,000. So the Sahaba were 10,000. They were on the way to Makkah Mukarramah when Abu Sufyan came and accepted Islam. Subhanallah. And then Abu Sufyan and Nabi and Abu Sufyan were enemies for over 20 years. But once he accepted Islam, Nabi forgot about all the things that he had done. He immediately accepted them as a Muslim. He honored them by saying, "Whoever enters into the house of Abu Sufyan will be safe," and that shows how noble he was. And then Nabi Sallallahu divided his army into 6 battalions. Each one of them had a flag with a different color: see, green, white, red, black, silver, and beige. They were told to enter Mecca through different entrances. The people of Mecca were taken by surprise. Muslims were everywhere. They couldn't fight back, so they had to surrender. And Nabi came and said to the people, "What do you think I'm going to do to you?" They said, "You are the son of our brother Abdullah, and you are noble." And Nabi said, "Go, you are free." And about the idols right there, and Nabi Sallallahu was pointing his stick at the idols, and the Sahabas were pushing them down. And on top of the Kaaba, that's Bilal bin Rabaha, he was calling people to say he was making a band. Okay? And here we have Aisha's house. Aisha, anha, you see that's her house. It was 6 by 5 meters, 30 square meters. So this is the room, and that's the courtyard. Subhanallah. Nabi Sallallahu, Aisha's house had 2 doors. The front door to the masjid and the back door to the city of Medina. And Nabi Sallallahu died in Aisha's courtyard. He literally died in her lap, or the line. So when she was crying, she was screaming, and the bees did, the Sahabas in the masjid, they could hear Aisha crying. So they immediately started crying. Umar was dealing with the companion saying, "By Allah, Nabi is not dead. He is with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He will come back and kill all these hypocrites." At that time, Umar was outside the city. He was running some errands. When he came to the city, he saw the people crying. He knew that something was up. That's obvious. These people are crying, so something is up. They told him that the Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam had died. Nabi and Abu Bakr were friends for over 50 years. Like he was the Prophet's best and closest friend. So losing him, that was really tough, that was really hard, but he dealt with it because he knew it was from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He came to the house of Aisha radiallahu anha, he uncovered the Prophet's face, he kisses his forehead, and then he said, "Oh, Ya Rasulullah, you are pure in life and you are pure in death, Ya Rasulullah. Oh, Ya Rasulullah, I would sacrifice my father and my mother for you, Ya Rasulullah." And then he walked into the masjid. In the masjid, Ramadan was crying, he was yelling, saying, "Whoever says in the beast that I will cut his head off or will kill him." Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, he realized that responsibility. He knew that the Sahabas needed help. So he stood on the member of Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam and he asked all the Sahabas to gather around him, and then he said, "All people, whoever worships Muhammad, let him know that Muhammad has passed away, and whoever worships Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, let him know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is ever living and never dies." Umar immediately, he immediately dropped his sword. He says, "It's like this is the first time I hear this ayah," and subhanallah, and that's when he realized that Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam had really passed away. You see, so the Sahabas washed them with these clothes on, they shrouded them, sallallahu alayhi wasallam, and then they performed Salat al-Janazah individually, one person at a time. And that took them days. And Nabi died on Monday, but he was buried on Wednesday.
Wow.
After Aisha, she didn't move out to the house of the Prophet. She spent the rest of her life in the same house. She used to sleep on the bed of Nabi next to the grave. Even after the death of her father Abu Bakr, she would do the same thing. But after Umar's death, she made a partition. You know why she made it? Because Umar is not related to her. That's true. He's not mahram. So every time she wants to go in there, she puts on the hijab first, and then she goes in there to give salam to the Prophet and her husband and Nabi. And that shows how respectful and how noble she is. So ladies, do ziyarah from here. This is the masjid, the Rawda. And men, we do ziyarah from here. These are the golden gates. So Nabi is the first one. He is on the right side, sideways, and the face is the Qibla. So when you stand before the golden gates, you're actually facing his face. Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu is further down from the Prophet's shoulder all the way down. Amr is great from the shoulder all the way down. The Sahabas made it that way out of respect. Nabi, Abu Bakr, and Amr. Okay? Any questions about that? And here? This one here, yeah, let's see. This one here shows the way that we used to bury our people. Here we call it Allah. See, that's the grave from the inside.
Yeah.
Take a look at it. Come and see the cavity in there.
So it's got crevice.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. So they take the body down, they slide it in, they push it in. After that, they cover up the gap with a layer of bricks, and then they fill it up. It becomes like this. So some of the graves have 2 stones, and others have only 1. 2 for women and 1 for men, just to indicate that's a lady, this is a man, and so on. Okay. Yeah. And that one is Saqifat Bani Sa'id. You know, after the Prophet ﷺ had died, the Sahabas had to choose one of them as the Khalifa. Okay, and that is why they had that meeting there. They were there. They chose Abu Bakr to be the Khalifa of the Prophet ﷺ. It's still there, by the way. It's a small garden next to gate 15 in the Haram. Yes. And here, this is the Masjid Nabawi Sharif. And these are, this is the Masjid Nabawi Sharif. And these are the houses of the wives, all of them. This is Hafsa's house, Aisha's, and this one is for Fatima, the Prophet's daughter. So these 3 houses are now underneath the green dome. The rest are part of the masjid. Okay? This is Sauda's house, Zainab bint Khuzayma's house. She stayed with the Prophet for a few months. After her death, Salama moved in her house. Zainab bint Jahsh, Ramla bint Abi Sufyan, Safiya bint Huyay, and the last one for Zubayr bint al-Harith. So each house had 2 doors, the front door to the masjid and the back door to the city. And as you see, all the houses are attached to the masjid. Okay? Maymuna's house and Khadijah's house were in Mecca. Right behind me, we have in Medina Munawwara in 1926. So the founder took around 8 years to finish it. A lot of people participated in building it. Not only that, this model is documented by the Saudi government, and that is why it's 90% correct. So this Masjid al-Sharif, that's the first wall. Yes. The second one at the back there, that's the third. These walls had gates. They used to open them after Fajr and close them after Maghrib. So after Maghrib, no one was allowed to enter the city. If somebody had come to Maghrib, he would have waited all night long. You know, back in the 20s, somebody had come to Maghrib, he would have waited all night. You see that Baqiyah, it was outside of Medina Munawwara. Masjid Ghamana, Masjid Bakr, where the Prophet used to perform Salat Eid. That castle right there is for the Turks and the Ottomans. And this is the tram station of the Hijaz, or the real Masjid of Hijaz. It had 2 tracks. The first track would go to Istanbul, Turkey, and the second track would go to Medina. This model has more than 4,000 landmarks in Medina, including houses, hospitals, universities, schools, playgrounds, graveyards. We have them all here. So this is the end of our tour.